Welcome to San Mateo County Today. Conversations with government leaders throughout San Mateo County. Here's your host, Marshall Wilson.
Welcome to San Mateo County Today. We have you covered from north to south. We have the Vice Mayor of Daly City on and the Mayor of Menlo Park. Two cities at the extremes of San Mateo County, yet are knitted together by the same issues: transportation, housing, the environment. They're going to talk about all the above and ways to get involved in their community. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to San Mateo County Today. I'm Marshall Wilson, and I'm joined by the Vice Mayor of Daly City, Juslyn Manalo. Thank you for being with us today. And you are fairly new to the City Council, just got elected in 2016. Here you've been on the council for a few months now. Tell us, why did you get involved in politics in Daly City?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here on your show. You know, I got involved in with Daly City and running for office because I've been living in Daly City since the age of 8 years old. And it's been my home ever since. And I've always wanted to serve others and give back. You know, I worked in a nonprofit sector, serving people directly. And I knew by becoming a local legislator in my community, I would be able to impact more lives. And so that's why I decided to run, really to give back to my hometown and where I grew up.
I imagine getting on the City Council, you had one image of what you would be doing and what it's like, and then the reality of what it's like. What is it like to be on the City Council? What do you do on a daily and a weekly basis to really kind of help move that needle in Daly City where you want it to go?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's definitely a lot of different parts to it, and I'm learning as I go as well, and using what I've learned in the nonprofit, the public and private sector with my background, and I'm able to actually utilize what I went to graduate school for. So I got my master's in public administration, and so I think I have a lens around looking at policy and then looking at the end goal of the implementation portion of it. We may create a policy, but what at the end, does it reach its goal to the people? It's a lot of meetings, as you probably know, multiple meetings internally, externally. You have regional meetings, and then also having time with community members, organizations. So it's definitely a balance around all these different pieces. You know, I love to hear from our community members and residents around also what their ideas are and seeing how we can incorporate some of the ideas that we see could work out for the betterment of our community.
And when you go out, when you're on the campaign trail and then now in your role, what are you hearing from the residents of Daly City and also from the merchants? In some ways, I think Daly City is somewhat removed from a lot of the rest of the county, and a lot of it is just geography. I think all that gravitational pull to San Francisco, there's a lot of that there, but of course it's the largest city by population in the county. So what's going on in Daly City these days? What's on the minds of the people as they talk to you?
Yeah, Daly City remains to still be the largest population, and actually recently heard a study that we are still actually very diverse. Well, one of the most diverse cities in the county. And so what I hear is a lot of people also want to see kind of why hasn't there been progress around just economically, where we're in between kind of, as you mentioned earlier, San Francisco and Silicon Valley. And I think, what you'll see is that there'll be a movement around creating more, responsible development that will have opportunities for both retail, housing, and that's exciting because we'll see that down the line. And if you're looking towards Ceremony right now, there's been some shifts and changes, and I think that's what we can see. Also, we definitely need to bring up some revenue for the city, and we don't have any kind of hotels. I mean, larger hotels, and so we'll see that down the line. Having maybe 2 or 3 hotels, bringing hotel tax to the city, which in turn goes back to our residents.
And those are long-term developments, of course. As we mentioned off-air beforehand, I actually, as a Cub reporter, covered Daly City. I was fascinated the way it is such a bedroom community, but it was actually built before the current tax structure really was in place. So now you're so reliant on business taxes and sales taxes. Cities are so reliant on that. And I know that's always been an issue there. How do you go about finding the land and putting together those kind of development projects that are going to really bring more revenue to the city and therefore really pay off in public benefits?
Yeah, and I think that's where it's really critical when we do have these opportunities of land to see what could be the potential. Well, what is it going to be? Is it viable economically for our city? And actually, is it going to be great community partners with the city, the neighborhood, the residents? So I mean, you have all those factors put together, and there's some exciting things going on. For instance, right by Junipero Serra, there's a potential for a hotel right there. It's close to transit. There's other opportunities for building housing close to transit. Yeah,
yes.
and other areas. And so it's ensuring that there's a balance of creating both market rate housing and also affordable housing for the community.
One issue I want to ask you about. So the Daly City Record is long gone, and you remembered that as a kid looking at that newspaper. How do you go about getting the word out in this day and age where there's not as much local newspapers? Everyone is on their smartphones and social media. How do you as a city, especially one as diverse as Daly City, go about getting the word out to the residents about what is going on in your city?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of ways we've been doing that. Is we have the Daly City Wire, which is an e-newsletter, and anyone can sign up on our website, and it updates everyone around activities. We also have an activity guide that goes out to the residents around our recreational activities, and that's actually still on paper. And then we have our website, and so those are some of the ways we've been sharing some of the news. Also, new nowadays is on Nextdoor,
right?
And the county does that as well, letting residents know that choose to be on Nextdoor around what's going on. And then also, I think, when we do have our employees on the ground, right, working with our seniors, letting them know with flyers. I mean, I think that's still so important. That personal touch with the residents is still so important, especially with our seniors, and then also youth. There's still kind of that, here's a flyer, remember this is when the events are happening at the Dolger Senior Center, will it be at Lincoln? So I think it's a mix of all these ways to make sure our residents are informed.
And you have mentioned youth and seniors, and I know when you were campaigning for city council, that was one of your focuses, is more services for youth, more services for seniors. So what is the city doing about more events for youth and engaging seniors?
Yeah, well, recently with my colleagues and also the mayor initiated a youth-led kind of committee and a council, so that there's a group of youth that are able to express kind of their ideas, what they want to see out there, and now there's this committee that's formed. We're actually looking for applicants out there, so if you know any young people that want to contribute their energy and time and their ideas. So that's one thing that has actually been initiated this year, and we'll see that down the line. And then, for our seniors, I've heard a lot of them talk about, their social activities are so important to them. I see that when I see them at the Dolger Senior Center, and there's so many of them actually are volunteers themselves. I mean, it's like phenomenal to see how active they are. And they have mentioned, that some of the facilities do need some upgrades and whatnot, and so maybe down the line we can partner with others to see how we can, the simplest things of even just updating their dance floor. It means a lot to them because they dance. This is keeping them healthy, and so those are some of the things I've heard and some of the things that we'll be working on.
And it really is so tied into in some ways, that dance floor is tied into how your economy is doing in Daly City, because that's the way you can afford putting in that new dance floor is with a thriving local economy. So I could see why you're so focused on the economy there. In the next few years of being on the city council, what would you like to see your goals? Like, if you had kind of like not the immediate goal, like at the end of this year, but 3-4 years from now, maybe when you're running for re-election, what do you want to tell people? This is what we accomplished.
In 3 or 4 years from now, I know that goes by pretty quickly, but I hope that we would be progressing towards really achieving a more diverse economic kind of scale, where also Daly City is not just kind of a gateway to the peninsula, but people actually come to Daly City because there are other areas that they would go to, and it's not just, oh, okay, we're just gonna drive through and not recreate. I mean, the theater's there, and then hopefully with this new hotel down the line that people see, okay, well, there's other things that can be done.
It's
I know
destination.
the destination, exactly.
Any thoughts of, well, your tagline is always the gateway to the peninsula. Any thoughts of changing that? Like, Daly City, here's where you want to be.
I mean, that's a great point. I think Daly City is not only a gateway. I mean, I've lived here ever since I was 8, and it's a beautiful city. I mean, and it's so beautiful around just how diverse it is and how everyone gets along with one another. You really feel a sense of community in Daly City, and that's so special. And I think that's what I hold deep in my heart.
Well, Juslyn, thank you for joining us on San Mateo County today. I very much appreciate you being here. And thank you for joining us. Welcome to San Mateo County today. I'm joined now by the Mayor of Menlo Park, Kirsten Keith. Kirsten, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here.
So this is your second term as mayor. You were mayor first time in 2012. Far different economic times than it is today in 2017. Tell us about the differences and those different choices you're making in these days on the city council.
Sure, I'd be happy to. It's an interesting time because when I was elected in 2010, we were cutting things, and we were trying to figure out how to keep services and how to make ourselves very lean. We eliminated a housing department that we had. We were cutting. And now, in this time, it's very different because the economy is booming, as you know, and we're building a lot of housing. We are looking at transportation infrastructure improvements and bringing art in and just looking at ways to improve our community for everybody.
You talk about housing, and that, of course, I think is the biggest issue on everyone's mind right now is housing, affordable housing and housing for really all incomes in the county and on the peninsula. What is Menlo Park doing about that? And how do you meet today's housing needs and also with an eye to the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. Menlo Park was very fortunate and had a lot of foresight. We had Jack Morris on our city council back in 1988, and they developed the BMR program. They were, I know, the first in this county to develop that. And because of that, we have funds available. We were.
I'm sorry, you have to help me out. What is BMR?
Oh, below market rate.
Got it.
Right. So it was incentive to, when developers were developing things, a portion of that money would go into a below market rate, into our housing fund. And we've been able to use that. And so recently, we just used $6.7 million for a Mid-Peninsula housing project on Willow Road. And we're really fortunate that we're able to do this. And Mid-Penn happens to own land already on the street, and they just completed another project where they removed housing that was there and added it, and we increased housing. Invited all the folks who lived there previously to come back, and then we were able to provide housing for more people. So we're really proud of the work that we're doing for affordable housing and for housing in general. We are building hundreds of apartment units now. And if you go out on Haven Avenue, we've had openings, grand openings for the apartments there. And I believe there was an article about Menlo Park building the most housing in the county last year. And so we are definitely stepping up and wanting to build more housing.
Because of that, though, do you get pushback?
Well, as any community, there's always pushback. I mean, no matter where you are. The region is trying to plan for future growth, and we know people are coming here and we have to plan. We have many community outreach meetings with our community members, and we're always trying to modify plans to make sure that we can make as many people feel comfortable and accepting of what the plans will be as possible. So for example, with Mid-Penn, they have another project coming forward, and they did great outreach. Jan Lindenthal is fabulous there, Matt Franklin, and they did great outreach with our residents on Carlton Avenue. Through that outreach, we decided to lower the height of the housing along the back and increase it along Willow Road. And of course, landscaping can do wonders, but we're always trying to reach out to the community members to talk about what their vision is and how they would like to see these new housing units incorporated.
Well, one of the real pieces of infrastructure in our county that links us all together from Daly City to Menlo Park is El Camino Real, what they're calling the Grand Boulevard. And I know you're very involved in that initiative. Tell us a little bit of background on the Grand Boulevard and what that really means for Menlo Park and what you're doing there.
Oh, sure. The Grand Boulevard Initiative is talking about El Camino Real, which is the Grand Boulevard. And the initiative is really to get density around the train stations and to reinvigorate and reinvent El Camino Real. So some of the things that we've been doing in Menlo Park to incorporate the Grand Boulevard Initiative principles are creating housing and commercial property and retail property within that half mile of the Caltrain station. To that end, we have right now the Greenheart Project, which if you drove down El Camino Real in Menlo Park, you would see tractors there. And it's taken over a decade to get that picture there. So we'll be producing a lot of housing, restaurants, office, but everything within a half-mile corridor of the train station. And the other thing is really to create this daytime and nighttime population so that we can create vibrancy for downtown. One of the things that we did in Menlo Park was a specific plan, and we passed that specific plan after about 5 years of outreach. It was our downtown specific plan. Lots of community input, people telling us we want more vibrancy downtown, we want more restaurants, we want outdoor seating, we want dining. And so we're incorporating those principles. So with that in mind, the Greenheart Project is coming forward now. And then south of there in El Camino, Stanford owns quite a lot of land. And probably within the next few weeks, we'll be seeing that project come forward again to finalize that so that we can get additional housing and commercial and retail space on El Camino. And the interesting thing about the Stanford project is it's Middle Avenue meets El Camino Real. And so we're also looking at building an underpass for a bicycle pedestrian underpass at Middle, which will lead directly onto our City Hall campus and to the playing fields, the gymnasium, the gymnastics center, the Arriaga Center, our library, everything. So it will really create this nice way for people to get under the train tracks to get over to some of the amenities that Menlo Park has.
So you don't need to be in your car all the time to get where you need to go.
We're trying to always improve ways that people can get around. So to that end, we had a bicycle commission and a transportation commission, and because Menlo Park adopted complete streets, I was a big advocate of combining those commissions and creating the Complete Streets Commission, which we did this year. So we are always looking at ways to help people move around, whether it's by car, by bicycle, by scooter, walking, strolling with their strollers with babies in them, whatever it be. But we do have a goal to help everybody get around Menlo Park in a safe fashion. So to that end, we're also doing the Transportation Master Plan right now, and we are now accepting applications for this committee. And so if anybody's out there watching this and you'd like to be on this committee, we would be happy to have you. Please get your applications in soon. This is going to be really a very important committee for Menlo Park because it's looking at transportation issues from Bayfront Park all the way up to Sharon Heights, the whole city. And I'm really excited about it.
It seems interesting that you talked about some projects that are 10 years in the making, but on that new committee you have, or the committee you're accepting applications for, are they going to be setting policy now, or at least setting ideas now for those next 10 years, or how does that work?
This is a very specific transportation master plan for the city of Menlo Park. So it will be basically, as the title suggests, creating a master plan for the city. And from a plan, then you will then pick pieces out of it to implement. But we've also been implementing a lot of new things around Menlo Park. One thing that we just implemented before school started at Menlo Atherton High School, for example, just started, and we did an Oak Grove Bicycle Boulevard. And this took a long time to create, and there was consternation by some of the businesses downtown because we took away some parking. But we really wanted to create a safe east-west crossing across El Camino Real for all residents and for all students who are going back and forth to get to school. And so we've implemented this. I just drove by it again this morning on my way here, and it looks really good. And I'm really happy that it's there because I think it's going to create another safe situation for everybody. And the more people that choose to ride a bike, it means it's one less car on the road for the people who choose to drive a car. I definitely don't like to create any kind of it's this or this situation. I think we're trying to create something that's seamless for everybody. And we can't really build more roads, so we're trying to utilize our roads in the best way that we can.
So on the topic of transportation, there's perhaps no bigger issue right now at the top of the headlines is Dumbarton Rail. A study recently came out about that, and Menlo Park is really the sort of the epicenter of the discussion about Dumbarton Rail. Tell us about that.
Yes, the Dumbarton Rail study came out August 15th, and the community members and everybody is looking at this now. We have a terrible congestion problem in this area, near Facebook and Willow and the Bayfront Expressway onto 101. So the Dumbarton Rail corridor is something that could help with congestion from the East Bay over to Redwood City. The entire corridor could benefit from this because the idea is that the train would eventually run from Fremont all the way over the Dumbarton Rail corridor to Redwood City, and then you would be able to go north and south, all on rail without cars. Right now we find that we have 80% cut-through traffic on Willow Road, and that's because we have all the jobs on our side of the bay, but a lot more housing on the other side. And so people are finding themselves stuck in traffic, and that really depletes the quality of life for everybody. So with Dumbarton Rail, Facebook funded a study, and the study came out and was presented to Samtrans. But we're really excited about this, and know that with Regional Measure 3 money, with the toll bridge crossing money, and with other federal funding and other state and local funding, and including business funding, that we think we can get this done. And it's not a quick fix, but it's a process, and we are well on the way to making this happen. Phase 1 would perhaps be from Menlo Park to Redwood City, and beyond that we could look at creating the rail crossing. It's going to be really important for all the cities on the corridor, and actually cities who aren't on the corridor but experience congestion, to write in and talk about why this is so important for them. It really is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and we need to act on it and make it happen and find the funding. Some of the other things that you might have seen recently also are looking at, I'm going to say this, BART to Menlo Park, Millbrae to Menlo Park. There were ideas about doing this years ago, and obviously they did not come to fruition. But as we see the traffic and the congestion in the area, I think it's important to relook at these ideas and decide if these are things that we do want to study and to bring to fruition. These types of things take a long time, as we all know.
I think critics say that not enough is being done on transportation, but it sounds like a lot is being done on transportation, and there are great ways for people to get involved in really shaping that in the future. You make a good point, too, about how it's not just cities along the corridor, but it's everybody, because everybody's impacted by congestion, traffic, high housing costs. It all really ties together.
Yes, absolutely.
When we started talking, you mentioned art. What is Menlo Park doing about art and incorporating that into some of these infrastructure and these other projects that you have going on right now?
So art is really important to me and to several of our council members, fortunately. So we are looking at one of the things that I did at one of our Menlo Park block parties. We had, well, it's actually the music in the park. And we do that on Wednesdays during the summertime. So we unveiled one of the electrical boxes with art around it. And it's a trial to see if people like it. And I hope people do. And then I hope that we will implement a program as you see in other cities. I know you here in Redwood City and other cities, you see that. And I think it's lovely. We are also, on Tuesday night, we have on the agenda a couple of different sculptures that we are looking at obtaining on loan for a year. And then we'll have a discussion about where those could go, that one could possibly go in Fremont Park. But I think as we look at our community, I think it is really important to have art in the community. We don't have an arts commission right now. And so something that I would really like to reform is the Arts Commission, so that we can have a guiding group of residents who will come together and debate these ideas and be able to display more art in Menlo Park. To that end, I would also like to look at maybe 1% for the arts from development projects. We don't currently have that, and I think that could be really useful, and it just adds to the vibrancy of any community when you have art.
So Kirsten, Keith, thank you for joining us on San Mateo County today, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.